Hi, good evening. Welcome to Business Live. My name is Darryl Kwao. Coming up tonight, Ghana to benefit from a $4.2 million UBA cash as the bank announces $14 million COVID-19 relief support across Africa. Intense pressure on government to declare an emergency lockdown as confirmed cases of the coronavirus rise. We hear from General Overseer of the ICGC, Dr. Mensa Otabil, who is calling for a lockdown of the public transport system. Is it feasible? We'll find out. And as businesses readjust operations to fit the new normal, how are human resource managers coping? What should they be doing? We'll have an expert in studio. Thanks for being with us. We've got details right after this break. Here in Ghana, there is intense pressure on government to declare an emergency lockdown as confirmed cases of coronavirus rise. Already, there are deep concerns. Plans to totally lock down could damage Ghana's economy, especially when all economic activities could grind to a halt. Well, in an exclusive online session, Dr. Mensa Otabil, that is the General Overseer of ICGC, suggested a shutdown of all public transport, including trotros and intercity travels. He says that could contain the spread of the virus, arguing that a complete lockdown could be far-fetched considering its economic implications.
Should there be a lockdown in Ghana? I don't know. I don't have the facts. My common sense would be that we should suspend public transport because this thing travels by transportation. We've shut down airlines, so maybe intercity travel must be shut down. We have to start shutting down travel, one way or the other. That may end up become like a lockdown one way or the other, except if people decide to walk from Accra to Kumasi or wherever they want to walk to. I mean, that would be my commonsensical approach. I don't think the government has any responsibility to take my advice because I am seeing it from the information I have. They see it from a different point of view, and they may make a different call on the same facts that all of us see differently at this time. So I don't know. I mean, yes, everybody feels that shut it down may be the answer, but shut it down in Ghana can be very scary. I driving through town on Sunday. I drove through Mokola, Tudu on a Sunday, and I saw the people, and I said, wow, do these guys know what is happening in this country? And today, if you go through town, it's scary. It's scary. I mean, if this thing hits some of the high-density populations we have in Ghana, we will be in a bad state.
Let's have a conversation around this. Joining us on the phone, transport consultant Cecil Gabra. Thanks very much for your time, sir. Are we ready for a lockdown of our public transport system?
Good afternoon to our cherished listeners and viewers. I don't think so. We should be fair to all concerned. We should be fair to the public. I mean, we use our own vehicles, and then touch wood, if somebody wants to go to town, doesn't mean that if trotros taxis are not working, I mean, public transport is not working, he cannot move. After all, the government hasn't decided to have a lockdown completely. We are all waiting, but however, for some of us as private businessmen, we'll just ask the same question. If you lock down, how are we going to pay our staff? What is going to happen? I mean, are we prepared? I know people are in town, and they are buying. A lot of people have picked public transport. They are going to buy items so that they will put them in their homes in case of any lockdown. I feel the government must come out clear very early so that we should stop this panic buy. I mean, for me, I know for sure that it is not possible to lock down. Do we have the means? Are they going to all sectors of the private sector that has almost about 80%? I'm talking about informal jobs. How are we going to live? So if the government could come clear to tell us, okay, we have 132 cases, this is what they want to do.
Okay.
So have any lockdown, it shouldn't affect the transport system.
Okay, but I guess the concern is that how do we manage the situation such that there is not a spread? And would admit that many of us use public transport when we want to go from one place to another. So how do we manage it in such a way that there is not a spread? And for instance, we know that transport unions are now considering reducing the number of people they would normally load in their vehicles. Do you think that's the way to go?
Yes, I think for now, for instance, yesterday I understand we'll have 2 seats, 2 passengers per seat, okay? That's fine. They should put up hand sanitizers. They should put up water to wash, and that's it, okay? So if the vehicle is picking 15 passengers and then you pick about 8, and that is for me, and then that could solve part of the problem. Right, but we should also think about the owners of the vehicles. We should think about it if we're asking them to shut down completely, public transport must not be on the road. What are they going to eat? How are they going to generate income? And that is my point.
And
right?
and so what precautionary measures would you advise they take? For instance, we've seen in some countries where vehicles or trains are disinfected and all of that.
Plan your trips, everybody. Just plan your trips. Unnecessary trips, just add it up. In case you need to move, all what I want to tell Ghanaians is that pick up your sanitizer, wash your hands as well. Trucks, taxis, they must all have sanitizers and have water good soap to wash their hands. And make sure that everybody is really prepared. And then that is it. That's the best advice I could give for now.
And a quick one. What does this say of our transport system? Because I have a feeling that we have been exposed, that things could have been much better if we had really planned our transport network.
Well, that's a very good one, and that is why I always speak about the Ayalolo, which is not really, working. If we have a very good transport system, we'll have very, very good buses that convey us, okay, which we can sit down in patterns, okay. One sits in front, the back is free, the next seat somebody sits on, and then that will be it. But we do not have it, and we need to manage what we have at the moment.
All right. Thank you so much for your perspective tonight. That was a transport consultant, Cecil Gabra, on suggestions for a lockdown or a shutdown of the public transport system to contain the spread of the coronavirus. In other news, United Bank for Africa, UBA, has today announced a donation of $14 million through the UBA Foundation to help African countries fight the coronavirus pandemic. The donation will provide significant and much-needed support to Ghana, Nigeria, and 18 other African countries by supplying relief materials, critical care facilities, and financial support to governments. There's more in this report.
UBA is providing a free telemedicine platform that is physician-led to provide direct access to medical advice in compliance with social distancing requirements. The group chairman of UBA, Tony Lumeluna's statement said, quote, "This is a time when we must all play our part. We commend the efforts of governments and we are keen to partner and contribute our resources to the collective efforts that will ensure the response to the pandemic is swift and effective. The global epidemic must bring citizens, governments, and business leaders together, and the private sector must work hand in hand with governments in stemming the spread of the virus." Unquote. The Pan-African Bank will fund a medical center immediately in Lagos, Nigeria, with beds for isolation and ICU facilities, managed and operated in partnership with Yes Holdings healthcare subsidiary Avon Medical Hospital. Part of the UBA support program will be allocated as follows: $2.8 million to Lagos State in Nigeria, $2.8 million to the remaining 35 states in Nigeria, $4.2 million to UBA's presence countries in Africa, and $2.8 million to medical centers with equipment and supplies in Africa.
You're watching Business Live. We are taking a short break. We'll be back with some more. Welcome back to Business Live. These are extraordinary times and everybody is adjusting to the new normal. Business organizations are also adjusting to this. For instance, here at Multimedia Group, some of my colleagues are off working from home. We're here working in the office. There are changes going on. And in the midst of all of this, HR managers have to cope. And so we're going to have a conversation around that. Joining me in studio is HR expert David Mills to share some perspective on how HR managers can cope with this situation. And I'm glad to have you in studio. Are you doing well? Are you fine? Are you observing precautionary measures?
I think, like you said, these are extraordinary times. I'm doing very well. I'm observing the precautionary measures.
Great. And so let's start on that note, precautionary measures in any business organization. As an HR person, what should be the focus?
So I guess the precautionary measures are actually out there. We know what we're supposed to do. So you quarantine yourself, stay home, stay safe is the mantra that is going on. What HR must fundamentally do is to intensify the communication of this. So this is a change management program. Like you said, these are extraordinary times. When something is not normal, it requires change. And what the role HR plays at the epicenter of change management is constant communication. So I expect HR managers to be constantly communicating with their staff via multiple channels. So they should be doing flyers, emphasizing the precautionary measures. There should be videos, audio recordings, perhaps from the chief executive, clearly signaling warnings to staff on how to conduct themselves, go about their lives, so that we can adapt to these times. I
guess the difficult part is how to balance productivity and employee safety. So for instance, like I said, here at Multimedia Group, some of my colleagues are working from home, but you have to still ensure that you are meeting your targets and all of that around this time. How do you balance that?
That's extremely important. So HR is at the interface of the business and people. Often people say, I want to be in HR because I love people. It's not enough. You've got to also look at the business's interest. So at this time, or in these times where things are not normal, we expect HR to balance that act carefully. Now, a couple of things are important. Now, you can look at flexible working models or go completely work from home policy. Like my company has done. Lineage Services has actually instructed that we all work from home. You know, the challenge with that system is employee management trust. So it's a two-way affair. Does management trust employees enough to still get behind their desk wherever they are and work and deliver on performance targets? And will employees justify that trust by actually delivering on objectives? That is often the challenge.
Right, and so I was going to come to the subject of working from home and how effective it is, and how are you able to even monitor what the employee is doing at home. How do you go about that?
I think it's quite simple. So technology drives agile working or flexible working models. Clearly, we can use some Microsoft tools. So Planner, Teams, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Outlook. These are viable tools you can use to track people's performance. So what we need to emphasize is that people must set their performance objectives just like they would have done if they were at work, upload them on Planner. We expect line managers to critically review and have a conversation to agree on those performance targets. So we call this performance contract. Once I agree with you, then I can hold you accountable. Right. And on daily basis, line managers must review these actions or objectives and ensure that the results that employees are churning out are in tandem with the objectives they set. So it requires one using technological platforms, and I've talked about these office tools, but also even more important, managers maintaining a strict adherence to monitoring, else nothing will get done. In HR, we say that people do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Right. Let's talk about this very important one, the next one, which is scary for most people because you're seeing it happen where some organizations are already laying off staff. It should be pretty difficult for HR managers at this point when you have to lay off people who would have been effective enough for this crisis. It's difficult.
Yeah, clearly not a pleasant experience, but I guess it's necessary. I mean, in business, you take hard decisions. So business is both head, heart, and intuition. And HR managers must understand these things. Somebody has said that the reason HR is sometimes irrelevant in organizations that we bring too much passion conversations to the table. So where the finance guy or the CEO is talking about numbers, HR is talking about passion. So where would the people eat? What would they go to? Those conversations are important, but sometimes they can actually kill business. I think that every HR must understand their talents. So you have to tier your talents into 3. You've got to have your top 20%, what you call your high potential talents. Have your mid 70%, the people we call average performers, and your least 10%, we call them the bad apples. Those are people you want to kick out of the door. So at this particular time, a stringent performance management system is important. Like I said earlier, it's tied into the question you asked earlier. So line managers must monitor performance targets on daily basis, weekly basis. Truth is, those who have been hiding behind excuses and I went for a meeting, etc., not to get things done, will be exposed. Like Baumia said, once the fundamentals are weak, you'll be exposed. So clearly, those who are not working will be exposed around this time, because the agile, flexible working model requires that you actually deliver results. Now, let me give you a very practical example. If you are in the office working, you can get away with, I couldn't send this report to this client because of this and that. I went somewhere, etc., Once you are working from home, like I said, you have to earn trust. So once you log in onto Planner, that at 4 p.m. I will send a report to this client. The expectation is that I'm looking out, as your line manager, I'm looking out for an email at 4 p.m. with me in copy, with that report sent to the client. Once the report is not sent, the most logical conclusion for me is that it didn't work. So that's where people must understand that agile comes with more responsibility, and we must earn that trust.
Okay, and so I'm working, and on top of my head, I'm thinking I may be asked to go home. It's difficult for me. So how do you manage that so that your employees are also not burning out of anxiety, frustrations, fear? That's difficult.
I think, like I said, hiring and firing are business decisions. They're not sentimental decisions. So clearly, a stringent...
Sometimes it's difficult to, take emotions out of it.
It is because of the kind of culture we have in Africa, by extension. I mean, like I said, if you fire somebody, he brings his uncle and great-granduncle to come and apologize, forgetting that if the whole business tanks down, it affects everybody. So we can't sacrifice, sacrifice the entire business in the interest of one person. I think that and HR managers must understand this. We must be business-centric. We must understand that business metrics matter in these times. These are times where businesses, our revenue inflows are declining. Because I work in a company where most companies were recruiting for us asked us to put a standstill or a hold on it. Trainings have been cancelled. We are thinking of innovative ways of still carrying out training through virtual platforms and webinars, etc. Clearly, you have to reduce your cost. So revenues will be affected. These are times we have to look at the bottom line and take very serious decisions. So what HR must do is to provide evidence of who those top least 10% are, and let's find ways to manage them out. If you don't do that, what happens is that because they are not working, their work is now added onto the work of others, and that's where people burn out. Because if I have to do mine and do somebody else's, it's frustrating. It's more frustrating even when I find out that we are paid the same.
Okay, so run us through what HR operating model we should be executing in these times on the part of HR leaders.
Yeah, I think 2 things. So HR must look at strong business partnering. They must be having conversations with business leaders, those who run the commercial side of things, and know what is going on, what decisions ought to be made, and also keep in touch with staff, especially those who have actually gone completely work from home policy or actually doing some flexible or shift system. It's important to stay in touch constantly with employees, let them know that the company also has interest in them, cares about them. But even more important, also urge them on to stick to their targets and deliver on expectations.
Okay, and what's the role of leadership in all of this?
They must lead the way. So people do what they see their leaders do, not what their leaders tell them to do. And I think that in these times, leaders must walk the talk. They shouldn't drive the people to do what they expect them to do without doing it themselves. So they must
and so earlier today we're having this conversation in our office. So people are working from home. The work is being done anyway. So after this crisis, should this, cause a review of our working model? I mean, if people can effectively work from home, deliver the targets and all of that, shouldn't we be having a conversation around that and not having to say, everybody comes to the office,
Trust me, I think that it's an age-long conversation. Now, if you look at trends in Africa, we're often late in terms of technological innovation by about a decade and a half, if not 2 decades, sorry. So in HR, for instance, there's a model called HR business partnering. It was mooted by a guy called Dave Rich, professor in the US. Now, we're still struggling to implement a system in Africa. And this was a book he wrote in '97, over 20 years ago. That's how late we are in Africa. So it's sad. Truth is that coronavirus has brought to the fore an aged conversation we've been having about letting people work from home. If you look at the current workforce that we have in the work environment, the millennials, and many of us are, research shows that they prefer to work from 3 places: beaches, hotel lounges, and their rooms. And if anything at all, the company I work for, I'm seeing clear evidence of how effective agile working models are compared to sitting in the offices.
Right. Thank you so much, David Mills, for some insight into HR and how to manage in these times. Interesting conversation. Appreciate it. There's more news on our website, myjoyonline.com/business. My name is Darryl Kwao. There you go, myjoyonline.com/business. Thanks for watching. We are back same time tomorrow.